The Art of Simple Living: Build a Life of Purpose, Peace and Fulfillment, written and published by Fearless Audiobook. Introduction. Have you ever noticed that the harder people chase success, happiness and more possessions, the more overwhelmed they often become? We live in a world that celebrates constant busyness, endless ambition, and the belief that having more will finally make us feel complete. Yet, despite all our achievements, many of us still carry a quiet sense of emptiness, stress, and disconnection. The problem isn't that we're working too little, it's that we're often working toward the wrong things. Real fulfillment isn't found in a crowded schedule, a larger bank account, or the approval of others. It grows in the quiet spaces we create, the values we choose to live by, and the courage to let go of everything that distracts us from what truly matters. In this audiobook, you'll discover that simplicity is not about giving up your dreams or living with less for the sake of less. It's about making room for a life filled with purpose, peace, meaningful relationships, and lasting joy. Each chapter offers practical wisdom and timeless insights to help you clear the noise, reclaim your attention, and build a life that feels lighter, richer, and deeply fulfilling. Your journey toward a simpler, more meaningful life begins now. Chapter 1. The life you've been chasing isn't the life you need. From the moment we're old enough to understand the world around us, we're given a familiar message. Work harder, earn more, achieve more, and someday you'll finally be happy. Success is often presented as a destination waiting just beyond the next promotion, the next purchase, the next milestone, or the next accomplishment. We spend years believing that fulfillment is something we must chase, something always waiting just a little farther ahead. For a while, this way of thinking seems to work. Achieving a goal feels exciting. Buying something new brings temporary satisfaction. Receiving recognition boosts our confidence, but those feelings rarely last. Before long, another goal appears, another desire takes its place, and another expectation demands our attention. Instead of feeling complete, we find ourselves running on an endless treadmill where the finish line keeps moving. This is the quiet trap of modern life. Many people aren't exhausted because they're weak. They're exhausted because they're carrying too many responsibilities, too many commitments, too many distractions, and too many expectations. Every day becomes a race against time. We answer emails while eating breakfast, check our phones during conversations, worry about tomorrow while living through today, and convince ourselves that slowing down means falling behind. But have you ever asked yourself a simple question? Who decided this is the way life is supposed to be? Somewhere along the journey, many of us stopped living intentionally and started living automatically. We filled our calendars because everyone else seemed busy. We bought things because advertisements promised they would improve our lives. We compared ourselves to people whose stories we barely understood. Slowly, without realizing it, we allowed other people's definitions of success to become our own. The problem isn't ambition. Ambition can inspire growth, creativity, and meaningful contribution. The problem begins when success becomes our identity instead of simply one part of our lives. When our worth depends entirely on productivity or achievement, peace becomes impossible because there's always another mountain to climb. Simple living asks us to pause and question everything we've accepted without thinking. Does owning more actually make life richer? Does being constantly busy make us more important? Does achieving every goal guarantee lasting happiness? For many people, the honest answer is no. Imagine carrying a suitcase every day. At first it contains only a few items. Over time, you begin adding more. A little worry, extra commitments, unnecessary possessions, fear of missing out, other people's expectations, regret from the past, anxiety about the future. Eventually, the suitcase becomes so heavy that every step feels exhausting. Yet instead of removing anything, you simply become stronger at carrying the weight. Simple living doesn't teach you how to carry a heavier suitcase. It teaches you to unpack it, This shift changes everything. Instead of asking, "How can I do more?" you begin asking, "What truly deserves my time and energy?" Instead of asking, "What else should I own?" you ask, "What already adds value to my life?" Instead of asking, "How can I impress people?" you ask, "How can I become someone I genuinely respect?" These questions lead to a completely different way of living. The truth is that fulfillment isn't created by adding endless things to your life. More often, it appears when unnecessary things are removed. A quiet evening with family may become more meaningful than another hour of overtime. A peaceful morning without checking your phone can feel more refreshing than scrolling through hundreds of updates. A heartfelt conversation may leave a deeper impact than collecting another material possession. Simple living isn't about rejecting success, comfort, or progress. It isn't about living with empty rooms or giving away everything you own. It's about becoming intentional. Every possession, every habit, every relationship, and every commitment should have a purpose instead of existing simply because it's expected. When life becomes intentional, clarity begins to replace confusion. You stop trying to keep up with everyone else because you realize you're walking your own path. You stop measuring your life by someone else's achievements because your values become your compass. You begin noticing beauty in ordinary moments, a peaceful sunrise, a meaningful conversation, the satisfaction of completing honest work, or the comfort of sitting quietly without feeling the need to be productive every second. Ironically, slowing down often helps us accomplish what truly matters. When our minds aren't constantly overwhelmed, we make wiser decisions. We listen more carefully. We love more deeply. We appreciate more fully. We stop merely existing and begin truly living. This chapter isn't asking you to abandon your dreams. Instead, it's inviting you to examine whether the dreams you're chasing are truly your own. Are they leading you toward a life of peace, purpose, and fulfillment, or are they simply keeping you busy? Remember one simple truth: the richest life is rarely the one filled with the most things. It's the one filled with the most meaning. Simple living begins the moment you stop asking, "How can I have more?" and start asking, "How can I live better?" That single question has the power to transform not only your days, but your entire life. Chapter 2. Letting go without losing yourself. Letting go is one of the hardest things we will ever do. Not because we don't know what is weighing us down, but because we often believe that releasing it means losing a part of ourselves. We hold on to painful memories because they have shaped our identity. We cling to unhealthy relationships because they feel familiar. We carry impossible expectations because we mistake them for ambition. Somewhere along the way, we begin to believe that if we let go, we will become less. But the opposite is often true. Sometimes the things we refuse to release are the very things preventing us from becoming who we are meant to be. Imagine walking through life with a backpack filled with heavy stones. At first, the weight seems manageable. You barely notice it. But every year, another stone is added. One represents an old disappointment. Another carries the fear of failure. One is labeled guilt. Another is filled with regret. Then come the expectations of family, the opinions of strangers, broken promises, toxic friendships, and the constant pressure to prove your worth. Eventually, the backpack becomes so heavy that every step feels exhausting. The strange thing is that many people don't even realize they're carrying it anymore. The weight becomes normal. Emotional clutter works the same way as physical clutter. Just as a house packed with unnecessary belongings can make you feel overwhelmed, a mind crowded with unresolved emotions leaves little room for peace. Every unresolved conflict, every lingering resentment, and every unrealistic expectation quietly consumes your energy. Letting go doesn't erase the past. It simply changes the amount of power the past has over your present. Many people believe they need closure before they can move on. They wait for an apology that never comes. They hope someone who hurt them will finally admit they were wrong. They replay conversations in their minds, imagining different endings. But life doesn't always provide perfect conclusions. Sometimes peace begins when we stop waiting for someone else to give us permission to heal. Forgiveness is often misunderstood. It doesn't mean saying that what happened was acceptable. It doesn't mean forgetting the pain or inviting harmful people back into your life. Forgiveness means refusing to allow yesterday's wounds to continue controlling today's happiness. It is a gift you give yourself far more than anyone else. The same is true for unrealistic expectations. Many of us create invisible rules for ourselves. We believe we must always succeed. We must never disappoint anyone. We must always have the right answer. We must constantly be productive. These expectations become silent sources of anxiety because they are impossible to satisfy. No human being can meet perfect standards every day. Simple living asks a different question. What expectations belong to you, and which ones have simply been borrowed from society? Perhaps you've been chasing a career because others told you it defined success. Maybe you've been saying yes to every request because you fear being seen as selfish. Maybe you've been comparing your life to carefully edited versions of other people's lives on social media. Comparison is one of the heaviest burdens we carry. It convinces us that someone else's timeline should become our own. It whispers that our achievements aren't enough because someone else appears to have more. But comparison never tells the full story. It shows us another person's highlights while we compare them to our own behind-the-scenes struggles. The moment you stop comparing, you regain something priceless, your own path. Another difficult part of letting go is releasing relationships that constantly drain your emotional energy. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people enter our lives to teach us lessons, not to remain with us forever. Holding on to relationships built on manipulation, disrespect, or constant negativity doesn't make you loyal. It simply makes healing more difficult. This doesn't mean cutting people off at the first disagreement. Healthy relationships require patience, forgiveness, and honest communication. But there is a difference between occasional conflict and consistent emotional harm. A relationship should challenge you to grow, not force you to lose yourself. One of the greatest acts of self-respect is realizing that protecting your peace is not selfish. It is necessary. Letting go also means releasing the version of yourself that no longer fits your future. We all create identities over time. Perhaps you've always been the people pleaser, the perfectionist, the one who never asks for help, or the one who always has to be strong. These identities may have helped you survive certain seasons of life, but they may also keep you trapped in patterns that no longer serve you. Growth requires courage because it asks us to leave behind what feels familiar. The old version of you may resist change. It may whisper that staying comfortable is safer. But comfort and growth rarely exist in the same place. Every meaningful transformation begins with release. Think of a tree in autumn. It doesn't cling desperately to every leaf. It lets them fall, trusting that new growth will come in its proper season. Nature understands a truth that humans often forget. Letting go is not the end of life. It is part of life's renewal. The same is true for us. Every burden you release creates room for something better. Every expectation you surrender creates space for freedom. Every toxic habit you leave behind opens the door to healthier choices. Every painful memory you stop reliving allows your heart to experience new joy. As you continue this journey, remember that simplicity is not only about owning fewer things. It is about carrying fewer unnecessary burdens. You do not lose yourself by letting go of what weighs you down. You find yourself. And perhaps the greatest freedom you'll ever experience is realizing that peace doesn't come from holding on tighter. It comes from finally having the courage to release what no longer belongs in your life. Chapter 3. Finding joy in enough. One of the greatest illusions of modern life is the belief that happiness is always one step ahead. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I earn a little more. I'll finally relax when I buy a bigger house. I'll feel successful when I reach the next promotion. I'll have peace when everything in my life is perfect. Yet, somehow, when we arrive at those milestones, the feeling rarely lasts. The excitement fades, new desires appear, and the finish line quietly moves farther away. This endless pursuit has a name, the "I'll be happy when" mindset. It convinces us that joy belongs in the future instead of the present. It keeps us chasing tomorrow while overlooking the beauty that already exists today. Simple living invites us to replace that mindset with a different question. What if enough is already closer than I think? Finding joy in enough doesn't mean giving up your dreams or settling for less than you're capable of achieving. It means learning to appreciate what you already have while continuing to grow with intention. There is a profound difference between healthy ambition and endless dissatisfaction. Ambition says, I'm grateful for today and I'm excited about tomorrow. Dissatisfaction says, today will never be enough. The difference may seem small, but it changes the entire experience of life. Many people spend years collecting things they once believed would make them happy. Bigger televisions, newer phones, better cars, more expensive clothes, another vacation, another achievement. There is nothing wrong with enjoying these things. The problem begins when we expect them to fill emotional needs they were never designed to satisfy. Material possessions can make life more comfortable, but they cannot create lasting contentment. Think back to a time when you received something you desperately wanted. Maybe it was your first paycheck, a new gadget, or an achievement you had worked toward for years. Remember the excitement? It felt wonderful. Now, ask yourself another question. How long did that excitement last? For most people, the answer is surprisingly short. What once felt extraordinary gradually became ordinary. Human beings naturally adapt to what they have. Yesterday's luxury becomes today's normal. This isn't a flaw in our character, it's simply how the mind works. But when we fail to recognize this pattern, we spend our lives believing the next purchase or accomplishment will finally deliver permanent happiness. Simple living gently reminds us that joy cannot be purchased. It must be practiced. One of the most powerful ways to practice joy is through gratitude. Gratitude is far more than saying thank you. It is a way of seeing the world. It shifts our attention from what is missing to what is already present. Instead of focusing on everything we wish life would give us, gratitude teaches us to notice everything life has already placed in our hands. A warm cup of coffee on a quiet morning. The sound of rain against the window. The laughter of someone you love. A healthy body that carries you through another day. A conversation that makes you feel understood. The comfort of returning home after a long day. These moments often seem too ordinary to celebrate, yet they are the very experiences that give life its richness. Many people spend years searching for extraordinary happiness while overlooking ordinary miracles. The truth is, the happiest people are rarely those who own the most. They are often the ones who notice the most. Contentment also requires us to stop measuring our lives against everyone else's. Comparison quietly steals our ability to enjoy what we already have. Every time we compare our journey with someone else's, we convince ourselves that our blessings are somehow smaller. Social media has made this challenge even greater. Every day we are exposed to carefully selected highlights from thousands of lives. We see vacations, promotions, celebrations, expensive purchases, perfect homes, and smiling faces. What we rarely see are the struggles, disappointments, sleepless nights, financial worries, and moments of doubt that exist behind every photograph. Comparison asks, why don't I have what they have? Contentment asks, how can I appreciate what I already have? Only one of those questions leads to peace. Finding joy in enough also means redefining success. Society often measures success by wealth, status, popularity, or productivity. But simple living encourages a deeper definition. Success is waking up with a peaceful mind. Success is having people who genuinely care about you. Success is ending the day knowing you lived according to your values. Success is having enough time to enjoy your own life instead of constantly rushing through it. Success is sleeping well because your heart is lighter than your schedule. These forms of success rarely appear on resumes or social media profiles, yet they create a life that feels deeply meaningful. There is an old saying, "Enough is a feast." At first glance, those words seem almost too simple. But their wisdom grows with time. A person who always needs more will never feel rich, regardless of how much they own. A person who learns to appreciate enough discovers a kind of wealth that cannot be taken away. This doesn't mean life will always be easy. There will still be challenges, setbacks, and moments of uncertainty. But contentment gives us an anchor. Instead of believing that happiness depends entirely on changing our circumstances, we begin cultivating a mindset that finds beauty even in imperfect seasons. Perhaps the greatest gift of simple living is that it teaches us to stop postponing our happiness. Not someday. Not when life becomes perfect. Not when every goal has been accomplished. But today, in this very moment. Take a slow breath. Notice where you are. Think about the people who care for you, the lessons you've learned, the strength you've gained through difficult seasons, and the opportunities still waiting ahead. You may not have everything you want, but chances are you already have far more than you realize. Finding joy in enough is not the end of growth. It is the foundation that makes healthy growth possible. When gratitude becomes your starting point, every new blessing becomes a gift rather than a necessity. Every achievement becomes something to celebrate instead of something you desperately need to prove your worth. The simplest life is not the one with the fewest possessions. It is the one where your heart no longer depends on having more to feel complete. Because the moment you truly understand the meaning of enough, you stop chasing happiness and you begin living it. Chapter 4. Creating Space for What Truly Matters. Imagine walking into a room so full of furniture, boxes, and scattered belongings that you can barely move. Every step requires careful navigation. Every corner feels crowded. Even though the room may contain valuable things, it's impossible to appreciate them because there is simply no space left to breathe. Now imagine that room is your life. Many people don't struggle because they lack opportunities. They struggle because they have too many. Their calendars are overflowing, their minds are constantly racing, their phones never stop buzzing, and every day feels like a battle against time. They fill every empty moment with work, entertainment, obligations, or distractions, leaving no room for reflection, creativity, or genuine connection. The greatest problem isn't always that we have too little. Often, it's that we have too much. Simple living begins with a powerful realization. Everything you say yes to is also a no to something else. When you say yes to another unnecessary commitment, you may be saying no to dinner with your family. When you spend hours scrolling through social media, you're saying no to reading, resting, or pursuing a meaningful dream. When your schedule becomes overcrowded, you're saying no to silence, presence, and peace. Every choice has a hidden cost. Most people only notice the benefits of saying yes. They rarely notice what they're sacrificing in return. Imagine your schedule as a bookshelf. At first, there are only a few books on it, leaving plenty of room to add something meaningful, but over time, you keep placing more and more books onto every shelf. Eventually, every inch is filled. Then one day, someone offers you a truly life-changing book, but there's nowhere to put it. Life works exactly the same way. If your days are already packed with unnecessary commitments, there is no room for new opportunities, meaningful relationships, personal growth, or moments of peace. Before life can give you something valuable, you often have to create space to receive it. Creating space doesn't begin with your home. It begins with your priorities. Many people believe they're too busy to focus on what matters most. But busyness and importance are not the same thing. Being constantly occupied doesn't necessarily mean you're living intentionally. In fact, many people spend years climbing a ladder only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. The question isn't whether you're busy. The question is whether you're busy doing the right things. Take a moment to think about your average day. How much of it is spent on activities that genuinely improve your life? How much time is invested in relationships that matter? How often do you pause to appreciate a beautiful morning, enjoy an uninterrupted conversation, or simply sit quietly without reaching for your phone? For many people, these moments have become surprisingly rare. Yet these are often the moments that make life worth living. One of the biggest obstacles to creating space is the fear of missing out. We worry that if we decline an invitation, ignore a notification, or step away from constant activity, we'll somehow fall behind. Society celebrates being available all the time. We answer messages immediately. We multitask during meals. We fill every waiting moment by staring at a screen. But constantly consuming information leaves little room for wisdom. Your mind needs quiet, just as your body needs sleep. Some of life's greatest insights arrive not when you're busy, but when you're still. Think about some of history's greatest thinkers, artists, writers, and inventors. Many of their best ideas didn't appear during moments of chaos. They emerged during walks, quiet reflection, solitude, or peaceful observation. Creativity flourishes where there is space. The same is true for emotional health. When your life is constantly full of noise, your feelings rarely have a chance to settle. Stress accumulates unnoticed. Anxiety quietly grows. Small frustrations become larger because there's never time to process them. Silence isn't empty, it gives your heart room to heal. Creating space also means simplifying your physical environment. The objects surrounding you influence your thoughts more than you may realize. A cluttered desk often creates a cluttered mind. An overcrowded room can quietly increase stress without you noticing it. This doesn't mean your home must look perfect or empty. It simply means surrounding yourself with things that serve a purpose or bring genuine joy. Every item you own requires attention. It must be cleaned, organized, maintained, or stored. The more unnecessary possessions you accumulate, the more invisible responsibilities you create. Simple living asks a refreshing question. Does this truly add value to my life? The same question applies to habits. Some habits quietly strengthen your life. Reading, exercising, spending time with loved ones, practicing gratitude, or enjoying moments of reflection leave you feeling more peaceful and energized. Other habits quietly drain your attention. Endless scrolling, constant comparison, unnecessary arguments, and mindless busyness consume hours while giving very little in return. The difference between a meaningful life and a distracted one often comes down to what we repeatedly make space for. There is also another kind of space we often overlook, space within our relationships. Meaningful conversations cannot happen when everyone is rushing. Deep connections require unhurried moments. Children rarely remember how expensive their toys were, but they often remember who truly listened to them. Friends don't measure relationships by the number of text messages exchanged, but by the moments of genuine presence. Love grows where attention is given. Perhaps the greatest gift you can offer another person is not advice or money. It is your undivided attention. Creating space isn't about doing less simply for the sake of doing less. It's about making room for what gives life meaning. More silence, more gratitude, more laughter, more purpose, more time with the people you love. More opportunities to grow into the person you were created to become. Every meaningful life is built through intentional choices. Every peaceful life is protected by healthy boundaries. Every fulfilling life has learned the courage to leave some space unfilled. Because an empty space isn't always something that needs to be filled. Sometimes it's exactly where life places its greatest blessings. Remember this truth. Your calendar, your home, your mind, and your heart are all limited in what they can hold. Choose carefully what you allow into them. The more room you create for what truly matters, the less room there will be for everything that doesn't. And in that space, purpose grows, peace deepens, and fulfillment quietly finds its way home. Chapter 5. Healing the Noise Within. There is a kind of noise that no one else can hear. It doesn't come from busy streets, crowded offices, or the constant stream of notifications on your phone. It comes from inside your own mind. It is the voice that reminds you of your mistakes long after everyone else has forgotten them. It questions your abilities, compares your life with others, worries about tomorrow, and replays yesterday's regrets over and over again. This invisible noise follows you everywhere, even in a quiet room, even during a vacation, even in the middle of a beautiful moment. The greatest source of exhaustion isn't always the world around us. Sometimes it's the conversation we're constantly having with ourselves. Simple living isn't only about clearing physical clutter, it is also about creating peace within your own mind. Because no matter how organized your home becomes, you will never experience lasting calm if your thoughts remain trapped in endless chaos. The human mind was designed to think, imagine, solve problems, and learn. But it was never designed to carry every worry 24 hours a day. Yet many people wake up already overwhelmed because their minds never truly rest. They replay difficult conversations. They anticipate problems that haven't happened. They criticize themselves for every imperfection. Gradually, this mental noise becomes so familiar that they mistake it for reality. But here's an important truth. Just because you think something doesn't mean it's true. Your mind tells stories. Sometimes those stories are helpful. They remind you to prepare for challenges, learn from mistakes, and protect yourself from danger. But other times, those stories are built from fear rather than facts. I'm not good enough. I'll probably fail. Everyone else has their life figured out. I'll never be successful. I'm falling behind. These thoughts often appear convincing because we've repeated them so many times, but repetition does not create truth. It simply creates familiarity. Imagine sitting beside a river. Leaves float gently across the surface of the water. Some are beautiful, others are damaged. Some move quickly, others drift slowly. Your thoughts are like those leaves. You don't need to chase everyone. You don't need to hold on to each one. You simply notice them, then allow them to pass. This is one of the greatest lessons of mindfulness. Mindfulness isn't about forcing your mind to become completely silent. That isn't realistic. Instead, mindfulness teaches you to observe your thoughts without becoming controlled by them. Instead of believing every fear, you become curious about it. Instead of reacting immediately, you pause. That small pause creates something incredibly powerful: choice. Without awareness, thoughts become emotions, emotions become actions, and actions become habits. But awareness interrupts that cycle. It gives you the freedom to choose a healthier response. Another source of inner noise is comparison. In today's world, it has become almost impossible to avoid seeing other people's achievements. Every day we're shown promotions, vacations, engagements, new homes, business successes, fitness transformations, and seemingly perfect lives. After enough exposure, a quiet voice begins whispering, "Why isn't my life like theirs?" Comparison is dangerous because it focuses your attention on what you lack instead of what you've already built. It convinces you that someone else's success somehow reduces your own. But life isn't a competition. Every person has a different beginning, different struggles, different opportunities, and a different purpose. Comparing your Chapter 3 to someone else's Chapter 20 will always leave you discouraged. Simple living reminds us to return our attention to our own journey. The only meaningful comparison is between who you are today and who you were yesterday. Healing the noise within also requires self-compassion. Many people speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to someone they love. One mistake becomes proof of failure. One rejection becomes evidence of worthlessness. One setback becomes a reason to give up. Imagine if your closest friend came to you after making a mistake. Would you tell them they were hopeless? Would you remind them of every failure they've ever experienced? Probably not. You would encourage them. You would remind them that one mistake does not define an entire life. You deserve that same kindness. Self-compassion is not making excuses. It is recognizing that being human means being imperfect. Growth doesn't require constant self-criticism. In fact, people often grow more when they feel safe enough to learn from their mistakes instead of being ashamed by them. Healing also requires learning to be comfortable with silence. Many people avoid quiet moments because silence forces them to face thoughts they've been trying to escape. So they stay busy, they keep the television running, they constantly check their phones, they fill every empty space with noise. But healing rarely happens in constant distraction. It happens in stillness. Some of the most meaningful moments in life occur when you simply sit without trying to fix everything. A peaceful morning walk, watching the sunset, sitting quietly with a cup of tea, taking slow, intentional breaths. These moments may appear ordinary, but they gently remind your nervous system that not every moment requires urgency. Peace grows where hurry disappears. Gratitude also quiets the mind in remarkable ways. The anxious mind constantly searches for what's missing. The grateful mind notices what's already present. This doesn't mean pretending life is perfect. It means choosing not to overlook the good while working through the difficult. Even on hard days, there is often something worth appreciating: a kind word, a warm meal, a lesson learned, a friend who checked on you, or simply another opportunity to begin again. Over time, gratitude changes the lens through which you see the world. Instead of constantly searching for problems, you begin noticing possibilities. Perhaps the greatest source of inner peace comes from accepting something we often resist. You cannot control everything. You cannot control how others think about you. You cannot control every outcome. You cannot control the past. But you can control your response. You can choose patience over panic, kindness over bitterness, presence over worry, hope over fear. These choices may seem small, but repeated every day, they reshape the landscape of your inner world. Simple living is not about creating a perfect life free from challenges. It is about creating a peaceful mind that can navigate those challenges with wisdom and grace. As the noise within begins to soften, something beautiful takes its place: clarity. And in that clarity, you begin to hear something that was always there beneath the fear, the comparison, and the constant worry. Your own quiet voice, the voice that knows your values, the voice that reminds you what truly matters, the voice that doesn't demand perfection, but gently invites you to keep moving forward, one peaceful step at a time. Because the greatest freedom isn't escaping the world, it's finally finding peace within yourself. Chapter 6. Choosing Presence Over Perfection. Perfection is one of the most convincing illusions we ever believe. It quietly whispers that life will finally be good enough when everything is flawless, when you make no mistakes, when your work receives endless praise, when your home is perfectly organized, when your body looks exactly the way you want, when your career reaches the next level, when every goal is accomplished. Until then, perfection tells you you cannot fully relax. You cannot celebrate. You cannot be satisfied. But here's the truth that many people discover far too late. Perfection is a destination that doesn't exist. The closer you think you are to reaching it, the farther away it seems to move. Every achievement simply creates another standard. Every success raises another expectation. The pursuit never ends because perfection constantly changes its definition. This is why so many highly successful people still struggle to feel enough. From the outside, their lives appear impressive. Yet inside, they often feel trapped by an endless need to perform, improve, and prove themselves. They are admired by others, but exhausted within. Simple living offers a completely different invitation. Instead of chasing perfection, it teaches us to embrace presence. Presence means giving your full attention to the moment you're living instead of constantly worrying about the moment that comes next. It sounds simple. Yet for many people, it has become one of the hardest things to do. Think about the last time you shared a meal with someone. Were you fully there? Or were you checking messages, thinking about unfinished work, planning tomorrow's schedule, or scrolling through your phone between conversations? Think about the last vacation you took. How much time was spent experiencing the moment, and how much was spent trying to capture the perfect photograph? Think about the last time someone you loved was talking to you. Did they receive your complete attention, or only part of it? Our bodies may exist in one place, while our minds are constantly somewhere else. We are physically present, but mentally absent. And when we live this way, life quietly slips through our fingers. Imagine a parent attending their child's school performance. Instead of watching the child sing with excitement, the parent spends most of the event trying to record the perfect video. Later, they have beautiful footage, but they barely remember how it felt to witness the moment itself. Technology preserved the memory. Presence would have created it. This doesn't mean technology is the enemy. Cameras, phones, and social media all have their place. The danger begins when documenting life becomes more important than experiencing it. Simple living reminds us that some moments are meant to be lived, not collected. Another reason we struggle with presence is perfectionism. Perfectionists often believe they're simply trying to do their best. While excellence is healthy, perfectionism is something very different. Excellence says, I will give my best effort. Perfectionism says, if it isn't flawless, it isn't good enough. Excellence inspires growth. Perfectionism creates fear, fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of disappointing others, fear of not being enough. This fear quietly steals opportunities. How many dreams have been delayed because someone waited until they felt completely ready? How many books were never written because the first page wasn't perfect? How many businesses were never started because failure seemed unbearable? How many conversations were avoided because the words might come out wrong? Perfection convinces us to wait. Presence encourages us to begin. One of the greatest lessons in life is understanding that progress almost always looks messy. Every master was once a beginner. Every confident speaker once stumbled through their first presentation. Every successful artist once created work they were embarrassed to show. Every meaningful relationship has experienced misunderstandings. Growth has never required perfection. It only requires willingness. Nature teaches this lesson beautifully. Walk through a forest after a storm. You'll notice trees with broken branches still reaching toward the sunlight. Rivers don't flow in perfectly straight lines. Mountains are shaped by countless imperfections created over thousands of years. Flowers bloom without worrying whether every petal is symmetrical. Nature never tries to become perfect. It simply becomes fully alive. Perhaps that's why being in nature often brings us peace. It reminds us that beauty and imperfection can exist together. The same is true for us. Many people spend years criticizing themselves for flaws that others barely notice. They replay small mistakes long after everyone else has forgotten them. They hold themselves to impossible standards while offering grace to everyone around them. Imagine speaking to a child learning to walk. Would you criticize every fall? Would you tell them they should already know how? Of course not. You understand that falling is part of learning. Somehow, as adults, we forget to extend that same patience to ourselves. Simple living encourages a gentler relationship with personal growth. It reminds us that life is not an exam where every mistake lowers our final score. Life is a classroom. Mistakes are teachers. Failure is feedback. Experience becomes wisdom. Presence also transforms our relationships. When someone feels truly seen and heard, something remarkable happens. Trust grows. Walls begin to come down. Conversations become deeper. Love becomes stronger. People rarely remember every word you said. They remember how you made them feel. Have you ever spoken with someone who kept glancing at their phone every few seconds? Even if they nodded politely, you probably sensed they weren't completely there. Now think about someone who looked you in the eyes, listened without interrupting, and made you feel like, for those few minutes, nothing else mattered. That is presence. And it is one of the greatest gifts you can give another human being. Presence also changes the relationship you have with yourself. Instead of constantly rushing toward the next achievement, you begin appreciating today's journey. Instead of eating meals without noticing their taste, you slow down. Instead of rushing through walks, you notice the breeze, the trees, the birds, and the changing sky. Instead of ending each day wondering where the time went, you begin collecting moments rather than merely completing tasks. This doesn't make life less productive. Ironically, it often makes life more meaningful, because productivity measures what you accomplish. Presence measures what you experience. At the end of life, people rarely wish they had answered more emails or attended more meetings. They wish they had laughed more, loved more deeply, spent more time with family, taken more walks, watched more sunsets, said "I love you" more often. These are not achievements, they are experiences, and experiences become memories. Memories become the story of your life. Simple living invites you to write a story that isn't measured only by accomplishments, but by moments fully lived. Today, the invitation is simple. Put your phone down during one conversation. Watch one sunrise without taking a picture. Eat one meal without distraction. Take one walk without headphones. Listen more than you speak. Breathe a little slower. Notice the ordinary beauty surrounding you. These small choices may seem insignificant, but over time they transform the quality of your entire life. Because happiness is rarely hidden in some distant future waiting for perfect circumstances. More often, it is quietly waiting in this very moment. The present moment is the only place where life actually happens. Yesterday exists only in memory. Tomorrow exists only in imagination. But today is real. Today is where love happens, where gratitude grows, where peace is discovered, where life unfolds. Choose presence over perfection, and you will discover something extraordinary. The life you've been searching for has been waiting for you, not in a flawless future, but in the beautifully imperfect moment you're living right now. Chapter 7. The Gentle Strength of Saying No. For many people, one of the smallest words in the English language is also one of the hardest to say. No, it has only 2 letters, yet it carries enormous emotional weight. We worry that saying no will disappoint people. We fear appearing selfish, unkind, or unhelpful. We don't want to create conflict, damage relationships, or miss opportunities. So instead we say yes. Yes to another project. Yes to another invitation. Yes to another favor. Yes to another responsibility. One yes becomes another, and before long our calendar is full, our energy is depleted, and our peace has quietly disappeared. The truth is, many people aren't overwhelmed because life demands too much from them. They're overwhelmed because they say yes to too many things that don't truly matter. Simple living teaches us an important lesson. Every yes has a cost. When you say yes to something, you are giving away a portion of your most valuable resources, your time, your attention, your energy, and a piece of your life. Unlike money, these resources can never be earned back. Once a day has passed, it belongs to yesterday forever. That is why every yes deserves careful consideration. Imagine your energy as money in a bank account. Every task, conversation, responsibility, and commitment is a withdrawal. If you continue spending without ever protecting your balance, eventually the account becomes empty. It doesn't matter how generous your intentions are. When you have nothing left to give, everyone, including you, pays the price. Your emotional energy works exactly the same way. Many people spend their lives making withdrawals without creating opportunities to recharge. They care for everyone else while neglecting themselves. They solve everyone else's problems while quietly ignoring their own. Eventually, exhaustion begins to feel normal. But exhaustion should never become your identity. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to say no is the desire to be liked. Deep down, most of us want acceptance. We want others to think well of us. So we become people pleasers, believing that our worth depends on how useful we are to everyone around us. The problem is that people-pleasing often leads to self-neglect. Every time you ignore your own needs to satisfy everyone else's expectations, you send yourself a silent message. Everyone else's priorities matter more than mine. Over time, this belief slowly erodes your confidence and your peace. Healthy relationships are not built on constant sacrifice. They are built on mutual respect. People who genuinely care about you will understand that your time and energy are limited. They won't expect unlimited access to your attention or demand that you constantly put your own life on hold. In fact, healthy boundaries often strengthen relationships rather than weaken them. Think of a garden surrounded by a fence. The fence isn't there because the flowers hate the outside world. It's there to protect what is growing inside. Without boundaries, animals wander in, plants are damaged, and the garden slowly loses its beauty. Your life is no different. Boundaries don't push love away. They protect it. They create the conditions where healthy relationships can flourish. Many people confuse kindness with constant availability. But kindness doesn't require saying yes to everything. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do is give an honest answer instead of making a promise you cannot keep. A reluctant yes often creates resentment, while a respectful no creates clarity. Simple living encourages honesty over obligation. It reminds us that every commitment should align with our values, not simply our guilt. This becomes especially important when dealing with people who constantly drain your emotional energy. Some individuals only seem to appear when they need something. Others bring endless negativity, criticism, or drama into every conversation. Spending time with them often leaves you feeling exhausted rather than encouraged. You cannot always choose who enters your life, but you can choose how much access they have to your peace. Protecting your peace is not an act of selfishness. It is an act of wisdom. Another challenge is learning to say no to yourself. Sometimes the greatest distractions don't come from other people. They come from our own habits. We say yes to unnecessary scrolling when we intended to read. We say yes to procrastination instead of meaningful work. We say yes to staying busy rather than sitting quietly with our thoughts. We say yes to temporary comfort instead of long-term growth. Simple living asks us to become intentional with every choice. Each decision either moves us closer to the life we want or farther away from it. The ability to say no isn't about becoming rigid or distant. It's about becoming clear about your priorities, clear about your values, clear about the kind of life you want to build. When your purpose becomes stronger, unnecessary distractions naturally become easier to decline. Think about the most meaningful things in your life: your family, your health, your closest friendships, your peace of mind, your dreams. None of these grow by accident. They require time, attention, presence. Every unnecessary commitment steals a little of those precious resources. Every thoughtful no gives them back. One of the most freeing realizations you'll ever have is this: you don't need to explain every boundary. You don't need everyone to approve of your decisions. You don't need permission to protect your well-being. A simple, respectful no is often enough. There will always be people who misunderstand your boundaries. Some may become disappointed because they benefited from your inability to say no. But remember this: people who respect you will also respect your limits. Those who become angry simply because you protected your peace often reveal why those boundaries were necessary in the first place. As you continue your journey towards simple living, begin asking yourself one powerful question before making new commitments. Does this deserve a place in my life? Not everything that is good is necessary. Not every opportunity is meant for you. Not every invitation deserves acceptance. Sometimes the most meaningful decision is the one you decline. Because every time you say no to what doesn't matter, you create space to say a wholehearted yes to what truly does. And that is where peace begins, not in doing everything, but in choosing with courage and intention what is truly worthy of your time, your energy, and your life. Chapter 8. Nurturing relationships that feel like home. One of the greatest misunderstandings about happiness is the belief that it comes primarily from achievement. We spend years pursuing success, building careers, collecting possessions, and reaching milestones, believing that each accomplishment will bring lasting fulfillment. While these things certainly have value, countless studies and life experiences point to a different truth. The quality of your life is deeply connected to the quality of your relationships. At the end of life, people rarely wish they had spent more time working late at the office or accumulating more possessions. Instead, they remember conversations around the dinner table, unexpected acts of kindness, quiet evenings with family, loyal friendships, and the people who stood beside them during life's hardest seasons. These are the moments that remain long after achievements fade into memory. Simple living reminds us that a meaningful life is never built alone. Human beings are created for connection. We all long for places where we feel accepted without pretending, understood without explaining every detail, and loved without constantly proving our worth. That is what it means for a relationship to feel like home. Home is not simply a building. It is a feeling. It is the feeling of being safe enough to be yourself. It is knowing that someone listens, not because they have to, but because they genuinely care. It is finding comfort in another person's presence, even when no words are spoken. Relationships like these become emotional shelters during life's storms. They don't remove every difficulty, but they remind us that we don't have to face those difficulties alone. Unfortunately, modern life often makes genuine connection more difficult. We have more ways to communicate than any generation before us, yet many people feel lonelier than ever. We exchange hundreds of text messages, but rarely have uninterrupted conversations. We know what someone ate for breakfast because they posted it online, yet we may have no idea how they are truly feeling. Technology has made communication faster, but not always deeper. Simple living invites us to slow down and replace constant communication with meaningful connection. One heartfelt conversation is often more valuable than 100 casual messages. Think about the last time someone gave you their complete attention. They weren't checking their phone. They weren't rushing to leave. They weren't waiting impatiently for their turn to speak. They simply listened. Chances are you walked away feeling seen, valued, and understood. That is because one of the greatest expressions of love is attention. People often believe love is shown through grand gestures, expensive gifts, or dramatic words. While those moments can certainly be meaningful, love is more often found in ordinary acts of presence. Sitting beside someone during a difficult day, remembering a small detail they once shared, asking how they're really doing, and waiting patiently for the answer. These simple acts quietly strengthen relationships in ways that money never can. Healthy relationships also require empathy. Empathy is the ability to step into another person's world without trying to immediately fix it. Too often, when someone shares their struggles, our first instinct is to offer solutions. But many people aren't looking for advice. They simply want someone to understand their pain. Imagine a friend who has just lost their job. One response might be, "Don't worry, you'll find something else." Although well-intentioned, those words may unintentionally dismiss their emotions. A more compassionate response might be, "I can only imagine how difficult this must feel. I'm here for you." Before solving a person's problems, sometimes we simply need to acknowledge their feelings. People don't always remember the advice you gave them. They remember how you made them feel during their hardest moments. Forgiveness is another essential ingredient of relationships that feel like home. Every meaningful relationship experiences disappointment. Friends misunderstand each other. Family members make mistakes. Partners say things they later regret. If perfection becomes the standard for love, every relationship will eventually fail. Forgiveness does not mean pretending that painful experiences never happened. It also doesn't mean allowing repeated disrespect or abuse. Instead, forgiveness means refusing to allow bitterness to permanently occupy your heart. It allows healing to begin where resentment once lived. Holding on to anger is much like carrying a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone else. Until you let go, you are the one being burned. Simple living encourages us to release unnecessary emotional burdens so that love has room to grow again. At the same time, nurturing healthy relationships sometimes requires letting unhealthy ones go. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people enter our lives to teach us lessons rather than accompany us for the entire journey. There are relationships that consistently encourage growth, honesty, and peace. There are also relationships that thrive on criticism, manipulation, dishonesty, or constant negativity. Knowing the difference is an act of wisdom. Imagine caring for a beautiful garden. You water the flowers, remove weeds, and provide sunlight because you want healthy plants to flourish. If weeds are allowed to grow unchecked, they eventually steal nutrients from everything around them. Relationships work in much the same way. Healthy relationships deserve your time, energy, and care. Harmful relationships, if left unaddressed, slowly drain your emotional well-being. Choosing distance from someone who consistently destroys your peace is not an act of cruelty. It is an act of self-respect. Simple living also reminds us that relationships require time. Deep trust cannot be built in rushed conversations, squeezed between endless distractions. Friendships grow through shared experiences. Families become stronger through ordinary moments spent together. Love matures through countless small acts of patience, kindness, and consistency. In today's busy world, many people schedule meetings, appointments, and deadlines with great care, but assume meaningful relationships will somehow take care of themselves. They rarely do. Relationships flourish when they become a priority rather than an afterthought. Perhaps one of the simplest ways to strengthen your relationships is to become fully present. Put your phone aside during dinner. Make eye contact when someone speaks. Listen without interrupting. Say thank you more often. Apologize when you're wrong. Express appreciation before people begin wondering whether they're valued. These habits may seem small, but they create a powerful ripple effect over time. Every healthy relationship is built on thousands of ordinary moments rather than a handful of extraordinary ones. Remember that success means very little if there is no one with whom to share it. A beautiful house feels empty without laughter. Wealth means little if trust has disappeared. Achievement loses much of its meaning when celebrated alone. The richest people are not always those with the largest bank accounts. They are often the ones surrounded by genuine love, loyal friendships, and relationships where they are accepted exactly as they are. In the end, your greatest legacy will not be the things you owned or the titles you earned. It will be the lives you touched, the kindness you offered, the forgiveness you extended, and the people who felt a little safer, a little stronger, and a little more loved, simply because you were part of their lives. Because a life of purpose, peace, and fulfillment is never built only by what you accomplish. It is built, above all, by who you choose to love and how well you choose to love them. Chapter 9. Living with purpose instead of pressure. Modern life teaches us to keep moving. From an early age, we are encouraged to achieve more, earn more, accomplish more, and become more. We measure progress through grades, promotions, salaries, awards, and recognition. While ambition can be a powerful force for growth, there is another force that quietly disguises itself as ambition, but feels completely different. That force is pressure. Pressure tells us that our value depends on our performance. It convinces us that slowing down means falling behind, and that rest is something we must earn rather than something we need. It whispers that if we are not constantly achieving, we are somehow wasting our lives. Many people spend years living under this invisible weight without realizing how deeply it has shaped their decisions. Purpose feels different. Pressure drains your energy. Purpose renews it. Pressure pushes you to become someone others will admire. Purpose calls you to become the person you were created to be. One leaves you exhausted. The other leaves you fulfilled. The challenge is that pressure often disguises itself as success. You may have the career you've always wanted, a beautiful home, financial security, and a calendar full of accomplishments, yet still feel an emptiness that is difficult to explain. That emptiness isn't always caused by a lack of achievement. More often, it comes from a lack of meaning. Many people climb mountains they never truly wanted to climb. Imagine spending years climbing a ladder. You work tirelessly, sacrificing weekends, relationships, hobbies, and even your health because you believe reaching the top will finally bring satisfaction. Then one day you arrive, only to discover that the ladder has been leaning against the wrong wall all along. This happens more often than we realize. Sometimes we chase careers because they impress others. Sometimes we pursue wealth because society defines it as success. Sometimes we follow paths chosen by our family, our culture, or our fears, instead of our own values. The tragedy isn't working hard. The tragedy is working hard for a life that doesn't truly belong to you. Simple living invites us to pause and ask an important question. Why am I doing what I'm doing? This question may seem simple, but it has the power to change everything. Why do you wake up every morning? Why do you work so hard? Why are you pursuing your current goals? If your answers revolve entirely around money, approval, status, or comparison, you may discover that pressure has quietly replaced purpose. Purpose begins with values. Values are the principles that guide your decisions even when no one is watching. They shape the kind of person you want to become, rather than simply the things you want to achieve. For one person, purpose may involve raising a loving family. For another, it may mean serving their community, creating beautiful art, teaching others, building an honest business, or helping people through difficult seasons of life. Purpose doesn't have to be extraordinary to be meaningful. In fact, many of the world's most meaningful lives are lived quietly. The teacher who inspires children every day, the nurse who comforts frightened patients, the parent who consistently creates a safe and loving home, the friend who never fails to listen, the volunteer who helps strangers without expecting recognition. These people may never become famous, yet they leave behind lives filled with significance. Simple living reminds us that purpose is measured by contribution, not applause. Another important truth is that purpose is often discovered through small, daily actions rather than dramatic moments. Many people spend years waiting for a life-changing revelation, believing that one day everything will suddenly become clear. But purpose usually unfolds gradually. It grows through curiosity. It becomes clearer through experience. It strengthens through consistent action. A single kind conversation may reveal your gift for encouraging others. A volunteer opportunity may uncover a passion you never knew existed. A difficult season may shape the compassion that later becomes your greatest strength. Purpose is rarely found by standing still. It is found by living intentionally. Living with purpose also requires letting go of comparison. Comparison asks, am I doing better than everyone else? Purpose asks, am I becoming the best version of myself? These questions lead to completely different lives. One depends on other people's achievements. The other depends on your own growth. The beautiful thing about purpose is that it belongs to no one else. No one can live your purpose for you. No one else has your exact experiences, strengths, struggles, relationships, or opportunities. Your life is unique, and your contribution to the world will be unique as well. When you understand this, something remarkable happens. You stop competing. You start contributing. Pressure constantly demands bigger achievements. Purpose simply asks for faithful action. Another important part of purposeful living is learning to celebrate enough. Our culture often encourages us to postpone happiness until the next milestone. I'll relax after this project. I'll spend more time with my family after this promotion. I'll enjoy life once I earn a little more money. The problem is that there is always another milestone waiting. Purpose reminds us that today's life is not a rehearsal. It is the performance. The people you love need your presence now. Your health deserves your attention now. Your dreams deserve action now. Your gratitude belongs in today, not someday. Simple living encourages balance instead of constant acceleration. It teaches us that work matters, but it is not the only thing that matters. Success has value, but not if it costs your health, your relationships, your peace, or your character. Imagine reaching the end of your life with every professional goal accomplished, but realizing you never had time for the people you loved most. Would those achievements still feel meaningful? Purpose helps us answer that question before it is too late. Living with purpose also transforms ordinary days. Washing dishes becomes an act of caring for your family. Doing honest work becomes an opportunity to serve others. Listening patiently becomes an expression of love. Even small tasks gain significance when connected to a larger purpose. That is one of the greatest gifts of simple living. It teaches us that meaning is not reserved for extraordinary moments. Meaning can be found in ordinary days lived with extraordinary intention. As you continue your journey, remember this. Your life was never meant to be measured only by how busy you were, how much money you earned, or how many titles you collected. Those things may have value, but they are not the true measure of a meaningful life. The true measure of your life is found in the person you become, the peace you carry within, the kindness you extend to others, and the difference you make, however quietly, in the lives around you. When you stop living under pressure and begin living with purpose, success no longer becomes something you chase. It becomes something that naturally grows from a life lived with clarity, intention, and heart. Chapter 10. Finding Peace in Every Season of Life. Life moves in seasons. Some seasons are filled with celebration, growth, and new beginnings. Others bring uncertainty, disappointment, loss, or unexpected change. No one escapes this rhythm. Just as nature experiences spring, summer, autumn, and winter, our lives move through seasons that shape us in different ways. The challenge is not avoiding difficult seasons, they are unavoidable. The real challenge is learning how to find peace while living through them. Many people believe peace will arrive only when every problem has been solved. They tell themselves, once this difficult situation is over, then I'll finally relax. Once life becomes stable again, then I'll be happy. But life rarely remains still for very long. One challenge ends, and another eventually takes its place. If peace depends entirely on perfect circumstances, it will always remain just beyond our reach. Simple living teaches a different truth. Peace is not something we discover after the storm. It is something we learn to carry through the storm. One of the greatest causes of suffering is our resistance to change. We naturally prefer certainty. We enjoy familiar routines, predictable outcomes, and the comfort of knowing what tomorrow will bring. But life has a way of reminding us that change is inevitable. Careers change, relationships evolve, children grow up, parents grow older, health shifts, dreams transform. Seasons come and go whether we are ready for them or not. Fighting every change only multiplies our pain. Acceptance does not mean giving up. It does not mean liking every circumstance or pretending that loss doesn't hurt. Acceptance simply means acknowledging reality instead of exhausting ourselves by wishing reality were different. Only when we accept where we are can we begin moving toward where we want to be. Imagine standing in the middle of a river trying to stop the current with your hands. No matter how hard you push, the water continues flowing. Eventually, you become exhausted, not because the river is stronger than you, but because you were trying to control something that was never yours to control. Life often works the same way. Some events are simply beyond our control. The weather, the opinions of others, unexpected setbacks, the passage of time, holding on to what cannot be controlled, steals energy from what can. Simple living gently redirects our attention toward the things that remain within our influence, our attitude, our choices, our actions, and the way we respond to life's circumstances. Resilience is not the absence of difficulty. It is the ability to continue growing despite difficulty. Think about a tree standing through every season. In spring, it blossoms. In summer, it provides shade. In autumn, it lets go of its leaves. In winter, it appears lifeless. Yet, beneath the frozen ground, its roots continue growing stronger. The tree does not resist the changing seasons. It adapts to them. Human life follows a similar pattern. There are seasons for building, seasons for waiting, seasons for grieving, seasons for healing, and seasons for beginning again. Each season has something to teach us if we are willing to listen. One of the most powerful lessons simple living offers is patience. Modern culture celebrates speed. We want instant results, immediate success, quick healing, and fast solutions. But the most meaningful transformations in life rarely happen overnight. Trust is built slowly. Character develops over years. Healing often unfolds one small step at a time. Consider how nature works. A seed does not become a tree in a single day. It grows quietly beneath the surface long before anyone notices its progress. The same is true for our personal growth. During difficult seasons, it may feel as though nothing is changing. Yet beneath the surface, resilience, wisdom, compassion, and strength are quietly taking root. Not every form of growth is visible. Sometimes your greatest progress is happening inside you. Another source of peace comes from learning to release the need for certainty. We often believe that knowing the future would eliminate our fears, but certainty is not what gives us courage. Trust does. Trust that difficult seasons will not last forever. Trust that setbacks can become lessons. Trust that today's disappointment may prepare you for tomorrow's opportunity. Trust that you are stronger than you realize. Hope is not believing that life will always be easy. Hope is believing that even difficult chapters can become meaningful parts of your story. Simple living also reminds us to appreciate joyful seasons while they last. Too often we experience beautiful moments while already worrying about when they will end. Instead of fully enjoying today's blessings, we allow tomorrow's concerns to steal today's peace. Life becomes richer when we learn to be fully present in every season, celebrating times of abundance with gratitude and walking through difficult times with courage. Peace also grows through perspective. When facing hardship, it is easy to believe that our current situation will last forever. But think back to previous challenges in your own life. There were moments that once felt impossible to survive. Yet somehow, step by step, you moved forward. You learned. You healed. You became stronger than you were before. Every season eventually changes. Even the longest winter gives way to spring. This truth doesn't erase pain, but it reminds us that pain is rarely permanent. Remember that a peaceful life is not a life without change, struggle, or uncertainty. It is a life rooted deeply enough that changing circumstances cannot easily shake it. Real peace comes from knowing that while you cannot control every season life brings, you can choose how you walk through each one. You can choose gratitude instead of bitterness, patience instead of panic, hope instead of despair, and faith instead of fear. When you learn to embrace every season with an open heart, you discover something remarkable. Peace is no longer waiting somewhere in the future. It has been quietly growing within you all along. Chapter 11. The Daily Rituals of a Simple Life. A meaningful life is not built by a handful of extraordinary moments. It is built by thousands of ordinary ones. Many people spend years waiting for the perfect opportunity to transform their lives. They imagine that one major decision, one lucky break, or one dramatic event will suddenly change everything. While life occasionally changes in an instant, lasting transformation almost always happens differently. It is created through small, consistent actions repeated day after day. Simple living is not a destination you reach once. It is a practice you return to every morning. The life you experience tomorrow is quietly being shaped by the habits you choose today. Think about a gardener caring for a small plant. They do not pour an entire year's worth of water onto it in one afternoon. They understand that healthy growth requires steady attention. A little water today, a little sunlight tomorrow, a little patience every day. Months later, what once appeared fragile has become strong and deeply rooted. Our lives grow in much the same way. Every daily ritual is like watering the garden of your mind, your relationships, and your character. One thoughtful habit may seem insignificant, but repeated over months and years, it becomes part of who you are. One of the most powerful rituals of a simple life is beginning each day slowly instead of reactively. Many people wake up and immediately reach for their phones. Before their feet even touch the floor, their minds are filled with notifications, emails, headlines, social media, and other people's priorities. Without realizing it, they begin the day reacting instead of choosing. Imagine starting differently. Before looking at a screen, you take a few slow breaths. You notice the quiet. You express gratitude for another day of life. You remind yourself of what truly matters. Even 5 peaceful minutes can change the emotional direction of an entire day. Simple living teaches us that mornings should shape our mindset, not simply begin our schedule. Another daily ritual is creating moments of intentional silence. The modern world rarely stops talking. There is always another podcast, another video, another message, another notification demanding your attention. While information has value, constant consumption leaves little room for reflection. Wisdom grows in quiet places. Whether it's sitting with a cup of tea before sunrise, taking a peaceful walk, or spending a few minutes breathing deeply without distraction, silence gives your mind an opportunity to settle. In those quiet moments, solutions often appear naturally. Gratitude becomes easier to notice. Anxiety loses some of its power. Sometimes the answers you've been searching for are waiting in the silence you've been avoiding. Gratitude is another ritual that quietly transforms ordinary days. Most people naturally notice what is missing. The human mind is designed to search for problems because throughout history, recognizing danger helped us survive. But while this instinct protects us, it can also prevent us from appreciating the blessings already surrounding us. Gratitude gently retrains our attention. Instead of ending the day focused only on what went wrong, ask yourself, what made me smile today? Who showed me kindness? What challenge taught me something valuable? What ordinary moment am I thankful for? These questions may seem simple, but over time they reshape the way you experience life. A grateful heart finds beauty where a distracted mind sees only routine. Another beautiful ritual is giving your full attention to one person every day. In a world filled with divided attention, genuine presence has become increasingly rare. Listen without interrupting. Put your phone away during dinner. Ask meaningful questions instead of rushing through conversations. Relationships are strengthened not only by major celebrations, but by ordinary moments of consistent attention. People feel loved when they feel heard. Simple living also encourages the habit of slowing your pace. There is a difference between moving with purpose and constantly rushing. Many people hurry through breakfast without tasting it, drive without noticing the scenery, finish conversations before they truly begin, rush through weekends while worrying about Monday. Then they wonder why life feels as though it passes too quickly. The truth is, life doesn't always move faster. We simply stop paying attention. Slowing down allows ordinary experiences to become meaningful again. You notice birds singing outside your window. You appreciate the warmth of sunlight on your face. You enjoy the simple pleasure of sharing a meal without distraction. Life has always been offering these moments. We simply become too busy to receive them. Another essential ritual is caring for your body with kindness rather than punishment. Simple living recognizes that your body is not a machine designed for endless productivity. It needs rest, nourishing food, movement, and sleep. Taking care of yourself is not selfish. It is one of the greatest acts of responsibility. When your body is healthy, your mind becomes clearer. When your energy improves, patience grows. When you are rested, you respond instead of react. Small acts of self-care create larger acts of compassion. Evening rituals are just as important as morning ones. Many people end the day carrying unfinished worries into bed. Their minds replay conversations, anticipate tomorrow's challenges, or continue working long after the workday has ended. Simple living encourages a gentle closing to each day. Reflect on what went well. Learn from what didn't. Forgive yourself for today's mistakes. Release what you cannot change. Tomorrow will bring new opportunities. There is no need to carry today's burdens into tomorrow's sunrise. Perhaps the most important daily ritual of all is remembering your purpose. Every morning, remind yourself that your value does not come from how much you accomplish. It comes from how you choose to live. Will you be patient today? Will you speak kindly? Will you choose gratitude over complaint? Will you become fully present with the people around you? Purpose is not something you discover once. It is something you practice every day. Simple living is never about perfection. There will be mornings when you oversleep, days when stress overwhelms you, moments when you forget your intentions. That is part of being human. The goal is not to perform every ritual perfectly. The goal is to return to them consistently, because consistency quietly accomplishes what intensity never can. As this chapter comes to a close, remember one simple truth. Your life is not shaped by what you do occasionally. It is shaped by what you do repeatedly, every peaceful morning, every grateful thought, every kind conversation, every quiet moment, every intentional choice. These small rituals may appear ordinary on their own, but together they create an extraordinary life. A life filled not with constant busyness, but with clarity, not with endless pressure, but with purpose, not with temporary happiness, but with lasting peace and fulfillment. And that is the quiet power of living simply, one day at a time. Chapter 12. Becoming the person who needs less but lives more. There comes a moment in every meaningful journey when you begin to understand that the point of life was never to collect as much as possible. It was never about filling every space, chasing every title, or proving your worth through constant achievement. At some point, After enough exhaustion, enough comparison, enough pressure, and enough disappointment, you begin to ask a different question. What if the good life is not the fullest life, but the simplest one? This final chapter brings everything together. It is the quiet realization that the goal of simple living is not to shrink your life, but to deepen it. It is not about having less for the sake of lack. It is about needing less so that you can finally live more. More peace, more clarity, more gratitude, more meaningful connection, more time to breathe, to think, to love, and to be fully alive. For so many people, life becomes crowded with things that do not truly feed the soul. We accumulate possessions, responsibilities, expectations, and obligations until our days feel heavy. Yet when we begin to remove the excess, something beautiful happens. Our minds become lighter. Our homes feel calmer. Our relationships become more intentional. Our hearts start making room for joy again. The more we release what is unnecessary, the more space we create for what is real. To need less is not to become empty, it is to become free. Freedom begins when your happiness is no longer tied to constant acquisition. It begins when you stop believing that the next purchase, the next accomplishment, or the next approval will finally make you whole. Instead, you learn to draw strength from what already matters. A peaceful morning, a trusted friend, honest work, a healthy meal, a quiet evening, a clear conscience. These may seem small, but a life built on these foundations is far richer than one built only on status and speed. The person who needs less has discovered something priceless: contentment. Contentment does not mean you stop growing. It means you stop measuring your life by emptiness. You can still have dreams. You can still work hard. You can still reach for better things. But you no longer need to sacrifice your peace in the process. You begin to understand that growth and gratitude can live in the same heart. When you need less, you also become harder to control. The world often tries to shape us through fear, comparison, and desire. It tells us we are behind. It tells us we are incomplete. It tells us that we need more to be enough. But when you are grounded in simplicity, these messages lose their power. You no longer chase every trend or every opinion. You become anchored in your values. You know what matters, and because of that, you are no longer easily shaken. Living more means becoming fully present in your own life. It means paying attention to the ordinary moments that once passed unnoticed. The sound of laughter in the next room, the warmth of sunlight on your face, the feeling of finishing a meaningful task, the comfort of sitting quietly with your thoughts, the simple joy of being with people who make you feel safe. These are not small things. These are the moments that become memory, and memory becomes the story of a life well lived. A person who lives more is not necessarily the one who does more. It is the one who feels more deeply, loves more sincerely, and notices life more fully. That person has learned that a rich life is not always loud. It does not need to be constantly impressive. Sometimes it is quiet, steady, and beautifully ordinary. Sometimes it is found in the rhythm of simple habits, honest work, and sincere relationships. Sometimes it is found in the peace of no longer needing to prove anything. This is the deeper reward of simple living. You become the kind of person who is no longer ruled by accumulation. You no longer fear empty space. You no longer run from silence. You no longer confuse busyness with meaning. You begin to trust that your life is already enough to hold beauty, purpose, and joy. You stop waiting for a perfect future to begin living well. You start honoring the life that is already in front of you. Becoming the person who needs less but lives more is not a one-time decision. It is a lifelong way of seeing. It is choosing gratitude when dissatisfaction appears. It is choosing peace when pressure tries to return. It is choosing intention when distraction calls. It is choosing depth over noise, presence over performance, and meaning over mindless accumulation. Over time, these choices shape not only your habits, but your identity. And this is the greatest transformation of all. You do not merely change what you own, what you do, or what you chase. You change who you are becoming. You become calmer, wiser, lighter, and more rooted in what truly matters. You become someone who can walk through life with fewer burdens and greater joy. Someone who no longer needs everything in order to feel whole. Someone who has learned that peace is a form of wealth, purpose is a form of success, and love is the richest treasure of all. So as this journey comes to a close, remember the heart of simple living. It is not about having a smaller life. It is about having a truer one. A life where your days are not controlled by excess, but guided by intention. A life where your heart is not crowded by noise, but open to meaning. A life where you need less, fear less, compare less, and live more. And in the end, that may be the most beautiful life of all. As we reach the end of this journey, remember that simple living is not a destination you arrive at overnight. It is a choice you make every single day. It is found in the quiet decisions to slow down, to let go of what no longer serves you, to cherish the people you love, and to focus on what truly matters. Throughout this audiobook, we've discovered that a meaningful life isn't built by having more. It is built by appreciating more gratitude, more presence, more kindness, more purpose. We've learned that true wealth isn't measured by the size of your home, the balance in your bank account, or the titles you earn. It is measured by the peace in your heart, the strength of your relationships, the integrity of your character, and the joy you experience in ordinary moments. As you move forward, don't feel pressured to change everything at once. Choose one habit to simplify, one burden to release, one relationship to nurture, one moment each day to be fully present. Small, consistent steps create extraordinary transformations over time. Whenever life becomes noisy, return to the lessons you've learned here. When pressure begins to replace purpose, pause. When comparison steals your joy, practice gratitude. When the world encourages you to chase more, remember that your greatest strength may lie in choosing less. Thank you for allowing this audiobook to be part of your journey. My hope is that these ideas stay with you long after the final words have been spoken and gently inspire the way you live each new day. Always remember this: a simple life is not an empty life. It is a life filled with the things that matter most. When you choose purpose over pressure, presence over perfection, and gratitude over endless desire, you don't just simplify your life. You discover the freedom, peace, and fulfillment that were waiting within you all along.